Welcome to EmoLab's Talk Series podcast, where we explore how technology shapes our lives. From digital consumers to gig workers and service robots, we delve into the world of algorithms, AI, and automation, examining how they transform our emotions, behaviors, and businesses. In each episode, we bring you thought-provoking conversations on the impacts of algorithmic capitalism and how to navigate a future increasingly dominated by machines. Join us for insights into who benefits, who's left out, and what it all means for the future.
Manu is an alumnus and working at a company called Cloudify AI, having a strong and reliable experience in AI systems and cloud system and algorithmic system as well. Multiple experience as a salesman, as an engineer as well. So we had a conversation with Manu about the content of the class, about the topics and concepts that we already discussed during the class. So Manu was very open to introduce those concepts in his presentation as well and to bridge his professional experience with the concept and theories we have discussed in the class. So hopefully you will have a very engaging presentations today, bringing those concepts and theories we discussed together to the real world, coming from someone who's working with those systems every day.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, everyone, for taking this time tonight. As the Professor mentioned, I am an alumnus, and I've sat at 6:30 on the exact same seats earlier, and may I say 6:45, right? Just like a lot of you did today, because that's what it takes, right? Without doubt, they were some of the best 6:45s I've had. So I hope this 6:45 for you is also a good one today. From an introduction perspective, he talked about all the good things in terms of my background on technology, cloud, etc. Couple of other things. I'm a father to a 9-year-old, which means that I am a human in a very algorithmic baby right now, right? So we'll talk about that. And I love sports, right? Like most of you people, perhaps I'm as dejected, at Jays losing as anyone could be. And again, I guess all of us were humans crying out, but there were a lot of algorithms in play there, which is why we came second to the LA Dodgers. So yeah, I mean that's a good start for me, a sport fan, as a human, actually working at the intersection of technology. Today, I would aim to just talk through some of the practical things that we've seen, right? Engage in some conversations, talk about where the world is headed today in the agentic AI world. How is the business, how are enterprises adopting this agentic AI? What would the agentic AI people, hyperscalers such as Google, Amazon, etc., how would they want the enterprises to adopt agentic AI? And how are the enterprises actually adopting it, and why so, right? So that's the intersection that I want to bring to light today. We'll try to get into a few B2B cases, some B2C cases, and we'll see talk about certain conflicts and how the world is evolving. All right, so let me move on. Yeah, that's the one. So we'll try to cover 3 broad pillars today. We'll look at one basic issue with most people have, and it's not just on the B2C arena, right? It's also on the B2B side. B2C is more because privacy concerns are real. A lot of us feel that our data is out, etc. But B2B may not be so much from a privacy standpoint, but from a business sustainability standpoint is also as, if not more, hawkish on security measures, right? So we'll try to cover that angle on the control and ownership of data, which is essential, which is absolutely essential. It's a bedrock. Agentic AI is step 3 or 4. Ownership of data and laying that foundation of data is step 0, right? So it's important, and it's also a concern which I'm sure a lot of you routinely comes to your mind. So we'll talk briefly about it. We'll talk about we'll also learn from you. Some of you, I'm sure, are from tech here. So we'll try to learn some of you, who've actually worked at that intersection, if at all, and I'll share my, my limited experience as well within that. We'll then move on to the more crux of what you want to do in terms of where agentic AI is acting. How is it redefining customer value? One step at a time, right? And how do you, as I mentioned earlier, how do enterprises actually take on it one step at a time? And then we'll talk about the human paradox. Where does the human fit in this today, 5 years from now, and maybe 10 to 15 years from now? So I'm very excited about this because it hopefully will be an extremely engaging conversation. Okay, so let's move with who owns the value. So let's talk about the big question, right? Like the elephant in the room. Where does the data live? Where is the data? Who's owning it? Your data right now, most of you, I believe, have a cloud subscription. Even if you don't, a lot of your data is residing on the cloud, right? Without subscriptions. How safe is it? How safe it is not? So from a B2C perspective, from an end consumer perspective, e-commerce, you're visiting tons of sites. Are you leaving a digital footprint over there? What is protecting you and your identity, etc.? So there's a big misconception, right? And that misconception is that the cloud provider, which could be anyone, right? And before even getting there, I want to talk about the cloud. Just taking a step back. Maybe some of us are not as well versed with what the cloud really is, and the cloud is just a data center, right? I like, it's not a big thing. It's just another data center. It's a big data center. That's it. And you have a way of getting into it. So think of, an aggregation of smaller data centers into a big data center. And now the world is trying to, get there. People have brought together their expertise because of economies of scale. You are able to and tech stacks, right? So you are able to optimize a tech stack. You have an economies of scale. So certain people are able to provide services of the data center, as on a subscription basis. And you connect to those data centers via the internet. So, if the internet wasn't there, the cloud wouldn't have been there. Otherwise, it's just, instead of your own data center, which currently is residing, say, for example, in your own hard drives, it's just, gotten up and been stacked somewhere, and you have a way of taking it. So that's the cloud, essentially, right? So the moment you start picturizing it like this, a lot of your concerns should kind of go away. How are you so certain about your data being safe on your own device? And if you are, then why are you not sure that it's not safe where it is right now? The risks are the same. If you get stolen from here, it will get stolen from there. Those risks remain. If anything, you are probably not as good as taking those backups as they will be, because there will be institutional handling of it. They've thought through it. You're not, right? So those concerns, a lot of them should ideally go away. And we are not talking about malicious intent. And I'll come to that as well, right? Malicious intent is another piece. You know your intent. You don't know the intent of the person who's handling the data center, and that insecurity can come in. But we'll get there. But as long as you can picturize it in those two different places, one of your concerns should definitely go away. The second one is about the leakage, right? So now you're thinking that, okay, all right, if it was here, then someone has to come and physically take it. Right now, there's this pipe called the internet where I'm accessing. What if there's a leakage there? And that's the other part, right? And that is what, if you look at the key mechanism there, and encryption being the key word, right? So encryption is extremely heavy these days. So there's no way that encrypted data, and the way it is encrypted today, can be hacked and decrypted. It can be, it sure can be. I mean, hackings happen, but then again, those could happen with you sitting here too. So the risk is equal, slightly less on the institutional side than yours. It is easier for someone to make a device which someone can just walk away and that kind of pulls data, versus doing that there, because they have enhanced security measures in place. They've thought through it. They are hiring the geeks who are capable of making something like this. So it is more protected than it is at your place. But that's what a practical security viewpoint is. So wherever you are, you need to understand that the reality of security, reality of the ownership of data is the same. It is owned by either the enterprise or the end user, depending on which case we take. it is, it is accessible. There is this, you have your encryption keys. There are mechanisms to protect it and for you to own it. The cloud provider is providing, think of it like it provides the infrastructure. This room, it builds it, and you come and rent it, and you can get your furniture. You can get those things. So you own that furniture. The cloud provider does not. It just owns this, the structure that it is created. So that's about it. It's your data is yours. You take it, you go. Now let's talk about the malicious intent part, which I touched about, right? So and how you save that, because I kind of touched everything else. And here's the thing, right? It was one of my favorite quotes, that ethics is actually good business as well. So I'll not go into the moral side of ethics, but ethics is also, it makes a lot of business sense. So if you question someone's moral ethics, on the business side, if, say, for example, if Google were to get hacked, it's gonna erode trillions of dollars of market cap. Google would not let that happen, right? A practical example is, if an RBC or a TD is afraid of a US subpoena, etc., for them to disclose certain things which they believe would have an adverse effect on their 12 million customers, they would not let their data go out of Canada. And they're not doing it. So their data centers are here. So industries such as healthcare and FSI, financial services, where they believe customers are very sensitive to their private information, they've already decided this. It makes no sense. I can tell you, coming from a tech perspective, it makes no sense. They spend millions of dollars, probably $500 million extra a year just to ensure that it stays here and the use of that data. But they do it to give confidence to the public that their data stays here, it will not be taken away, right? When that consumer behavior changes, when you believe that it doesn't matter where your data resides, which is the truth. I mean, all of us will get there someday. It doesn't matter where your data resides in a data center, it is still as safe or not as safe. Until that happens, it's you who are paying that $500 million, because your monthly account fee is where it goes from, right? But my point was that the corporations will take all the necessary steps that they have to, because it's good business. They cannot afford to go, and that's the risk. I mean, again, there could be a leadership which takes a bad thing, and in that case, it could go, but that could happen anyway. So to sum it up, just move on to the next one. You can rest assured, whether you are on the end user side or on the enterprise side, your data is very safe. It is your data. No one has access to it, for a variety of checks and balances, which may be different from earlier. Earlier, there were different checks and balances. For example, it was a siloed building, it was guarded 24 hours, etc. All those kind of things. Those are also checks and balances. Now the checks and balances are different. But there are enough checks and balances that are there that your data is as safe as it probably can be, and you own your data. All right, I'll move to the next one. I think I briefly talked about the Canadian bank piece. Just putting it right here on the data residency and the customer, the encryption key. Also on the B2C side, right? So again, taking it back to the ethical question, to the what has Facebook done, for example? It cannot afford to lose. It cannot afford to lose its 2.5, 3 billion people, and yet it has to monetize the data. That's the only way it makes money. So aggregations. And they will do aggregations. The aggregations work. A lot of the left-minded people in this class would agree that most of us would fall in some category of people, right? There are enough psychometric tests, etc., which place some of us in some category of person, and that's all Facebook is doing. Cohorts, aggregates, and giving those aggregates, including to those of you who've done Facebook market ads over here. I'm sure some of you have dabbled with those over here. So to those, it goes ahead and actually projects that, hey, here is a cohort. You could probably make this pitch to this cohort. So it is doing it. It is doing it in a way that it would never come down to you. And it is doing that because it is good business. So again, just those two things that we talked about, data privacy in practice and the 2 case studies. Okay, let's move to the CRM, customer relationship management, and what is the impact that we are having. I think it's important for us to understand that we moved from a reactive to a proactive kind of it's a paradigm shift. No longer is being reactive good enough. Let me put it that way. It could have worked earlier and you'll see it across. You'll start seeing it across the touch points of wherever and whenever you go to buy certain things, your buying habits. The calls that would probably come earlier from a feedback perspective, they have been pulled earlier. Your touch points with respect to, for example, if you go on your Apple app or any app, if you're going ahead and you are canceling a subscription, in real time, you're getting an offer of saying, hey, do you want to continue for another 2 months at this price? It's a real-time application of a CRM, which is agentic in nature. It has gone ahead, quantified or studied, analyzed your behavior, and come up with a recommendation. As just one small example. So from reactive, which means someone comes up and gives you bad feedback, to actually taking in all the signals. So, creating an infrastructure, creating interfaces where you could absorb signals and then in real time go ahead and come up with recommendations is happening. And that is the new customer relationship management paradigm. Now, it's an entirely new way of thinking. And there are things that we could debate here, and we can talk about it a bit later. But suffice it to say that the time has now come that if you were to wait for a reactive approach, reaction-based servicing approach to any customer, there could be a competitor who will be proactive and the churn would be there. And that is happening, right? So that is the impact of the current data-driven world on customer relationship management, which also therefore has its own impact on the metrics. So what are the metrics that you're actually measuring now? Those metrics will again completely transform. They are, if you're looking at a churn reaction, for example, that's looking back. So what you are actually seeing in the world of agentic AI now, just think of that the agentic AI has actually been absorbed by your enterprise or by you, for example. You're actually looking at whether you've been able to address it in real time. And if not, so you are still tracking a metric. The metric is, was real-time value actually added by my AI agent or not? And once the yes or no comes in, how much? And that the organizations that are looking at those metrics and consistently pushing them up are the ones that are becoming, pushing themselves forward in the agentic AI era. Again, another offshoot of that is agent to value cycle time. So think of it as there is an agent that is capable, and that's how agents differentiate from your regular LLMs, right? So they're able to do tasks. Your regular LLMs are able to do tasks, whereas agents are able to own outcomes. And that's a key differentiator. So you will tell an agent that, hey, I do not want a customer canceling the subscription if they're complaining of a higher price vis-a-vis a competitor. And the agent would go, it would think what steps to take, it would take into consideration everything that has happened earlier, the consumer behavior, etc., give an offer and try to do it, try to retain the customer. If it is not able to do it during the call, it will go ahead and try to send those things over as early as possible. So the second one that you see, agent to value cycle time, is just another metric, is where real time is not possible. So that's another metric. Where and how much time are agents taking to get that value from the customer? Cross-sell, upsell, how much time is it taking for the agent to do it, etc. So these are just ways, these are frameworks, and we can talk about 10 other metrics. I don't want to get into it because these metrics are more around what metrics could look like in the age of agentic AI, and we can take it up in a bit more depth if you're interested later on. Okay. So let's take a few cases, right? And this is again, now this is agentic AI, leading telco provider here in Canada, very high CSAT scores, great CSAT for those of you, and customer satisfaction. Sometimes us MBAs have this bad habit of using acronyms, but still there was high churn. So why was the high churn, right? So there's management sitting and looking at it, etc. And there's this agent that works purely. The job of it is to come up with insights. It's called Insights. It's been rolled out. So what it does is goes ahead and actually just takes the call sentiment, and from that call sentiment, it was able to analyze that it was about broken billing. The agent was very nice, and I'm sure you all, from your personal experiences, have had this a lot of time. The agent is very nice. You've been on those calls, but you are still, the problem was not solved. But in this case, there was a dissection. So think of it as calls coming in, and say this is a massive call center. This is a real, this is a real case study that you see here. So there is a massive call center. Every day, hundreds of thousands of calls are coming in. It is actually analyzing the sentiment and taking out key topics, and from there coming up with the top topics for the management to look into. And from there, this billing piece was actually identified, rectified, and that contributed to a lower churn. So this ROI for this product, so now taking it from a business perspective, like this particular piece helped. The ROI this was done on a hyperscaler. It was a hyperscaler cloud native solution, and they were able to come up with this in real time and give it to customer experience associates on the call, who sometimes were and sometimes were not able to handle it. And at a leadership level, this was handled at a quarterly basis, and in 6 months they were able to fix the billing. So this kind of analysis was simply unthinkable. The scale of this, the ability to transcribe, document, analyze, summarize, and then get key threads out of it, cannot be done in a prior environment. And hence, and it was completely data backed, right? So a lot of times leaders go on hunches, but in this case, they didn't have to. They had complete data to see what was the problem, and once they fixed it, they saw the thing. So this is something where AI, these are real use cases where AI is driving value. And this is interesting because we'll talk about this was still 6 months to 9 months where the value could come in, right? And agentic AI is very different. Agentic AI can bring that value in 15 days. Again, depends on what's the size of the enterprises and the problem. Another one, prominent cancer research org. So what is it trying to do is trying to raise money. Small marketing budget, typical grant raising exercise. You hold a few nice events, etc., call some flashy people, but they started gathering data from the touch points, right? So it is something known as a single view of the customer, which a lot of organizations are trying to do these days. So any touch point from a particular person, from a particular IP, across different interfaces can be documented, and from there would come analytics around how many people are visiting you and for what reasons. And they analyze that data, they analyze the footprints across various channels and for different people, and they came up with that, hey, our content and what kind of content was being visited by what kind of people in what pin codes. And so therefore there was probably merit in spending that money on on Google ads or a social media marketing strategy directed in those pin codes for those kind of people for a subscription based strategy, and it worked out. They were able to increase their average customer lifetime value, because the earlier it was donors who would come once, very few out of the donors every year would be repeat donors. Over here there were people who would just take subscriptions, and this was again driven by this case, right? So this is what's happening in practice right now. Okay, moving on. Yeah, so this is my one of my favorite slides today, on the trust paradox side. So we'll try to we'll try to work on the trust side. And when I say trust, it's about, do we trust AI? And then we'll take two angles to it, right? As an enterprise and as end users, right? So B2B and B2C. So this is the B2B slide, and everyone's trying to reimagine from a B2B perspective what does the agentic AI look like? What is agentic AI? What can I do with it? Like, AI is great. So here's the thing, and it's very important. I think it calls for all of us to understand. Massive investments have been made in AI right now. I'm sure some of you are definitely invested in the stock markets, and I'm sure almost all of you follow it very closely. So if you see it, you are probably noticing that this entire AI wave, right? It is, call it a bubble or what have you. You can call it anything that you want. But companies are making massive, massive investments, unheard of investments in the space. And these are companies that are creating the AI infrastructure. So think of hyperscalers, and we can break down how AI gets down to the end user. There's the infrastructure layer. So there's the mining layer, there's the infrastructure layer, and then there is the platform layer, and then there is the application layer. So let's take four broad layers to it. And businesses are saying that, hey, we have invested so much, and when businesses have, and to give them some credit, they have invested a lot in playing around with AI, in launching AI initiatives. So the business community in general definitely believes that AI is the way forward, and they've not just said it, they've actually invested in it. But here's the other truth, that they haven't seen any returns from it, and that's the problem. So all the AI leaders, there's this mistrust, and hence the trust paradox, that can AI actually deliver? Is it just about putting some nice fancy questions in a chat box and getting nice answers, talking to someone when you're bored, or can it actually give me some value? And that trust, to actually create that trust, or to understand that trust, I'll give you my opinion on it, which is also hugely borrowed from some of the leaders that I follow. But it's to get to the answer, you just have to go back and look at a few other things, right? let's take an analogy. Like, let's just try to take the steam engine analogy. So what used to happen earlier in factories was that there was this one steam power plant which was centrally located, and it would create power. That power would be served to various units which were manufacturing something via shafts, etc. And that was the entire power distribution piece. There was an invention, and they could have electricity, but they just didn't know how to use electricity. How would it go? So until the electric motor was invented, which could decentralize power, that entire invention never saw any use within the industry. And we are talking decades. When that invention came through, was when actually we started seeing massive improvements. And that is because a transformation happened. You no longer required the fact, you could reimagine the whole fact. And it was reimagined. So that frees up a lot of things. And it happened with that small thing, right? A unit motor that came through. So the power center became decentralized. Smaller plants could have it. Still smaller machines could have it. That means machines could be placed somewhere else. There could be something else. You could design a factory in a different way. Logistics could be planned in a different way. Let's take another analogy. Let's go with a more recent one. Let's take maybe the ERP one, or the AI itself one, the 2010 AI. So in 2010 AI, the 2010 AI was out. People were shouting at the top of their voice, hey, AI is going to do the next big thing. And they knew it. There are papers. You'd research and you'd find papers on AI way back, right? But no one could use it. No one could use it. The AI revolution has been 15 years in the making. 15 years. For everyone today, I'm sure, all of you, I'm sure it's 100%, not even 99%, use some form or the other of an LLM for research. Now, Google's already incorporated its mainline search engine, so it's hard to get past it. But until they hadn't, say a month ago or 2 months ago, you all probably had an app. It might be Perplexity for you, it might be ChatGPT, it might be something else. But you are all using it. That AI to 14 years in the making. Right? But now everyone's using it. Everyone. And that changes things. And I'm sure all of you will agree, in whatever capacity you're using it, that it has changed things. It has changed things for the professor. He doesn't know whether you are writing it or AI is writing it, right? I'm sure. The assignments, right? So it's a difficult job now to see. But everyone's using it. And that's no longer would you not use it. I think it's table stakes now. Everyone would use it. And that has happened. So if we were to look at this enterprise trust paradox, the risk versus action debate at the B2B level is about, should we go all in and think of our organization as an AI first organization, which is where transformational change occurs, where you redefine your factory. Classes will not be held in a classroom. Or do you hold classes here and say, hey, you can just walk in, you don't need your your tabs, you can just do this or that. So what level of technology are you going to use, and when? What is your buy-in? That's the trust paradox that all the B2B enterprises are currently facing. Some of them have gone all in. It is easier for the smaller ones, of course. It is very easy for someone who's starting out a business today. because they can be digitally native, which is the way to go. It is difficult for the McKinseys of the world, for the Telesis of the world, for the RBCs of the world, for a variety of reasons, and we'll talk about them, right? It is very difficult for them. So what do they do? Do they wait? Does RBC wait until wealth symbol becomes RBC? And that's the debate. That's the risk versus action debate that is happening in RBC's halls these days. And I'm just taking RBC's name in every institutions, right? Wherever you would go in economies, in ecosystems where startup culture is thriving, all startups that are trying to disrupt something are coming up with digitally native solutions. Easier to scale, easier to launch, solving the same problems. Problems have not changed. We are still eating the food, we are wearing our clothes, we want our experiences, etc. Let's not get there. So Uber is still for me, it's still a cab hailing service, right? So it's not, you still get in a car, you have a driver. But the way you think about hailing a car has completely changed. That's what Uber did, right? So that's what the smartphone did. I mean, that was one thing. That is what the smartphone ecosystem did for us. Now with agentic AI, the enterprises are thinking at what level should we embrace it? And when we talked about these 5 phases that you see, right? Awareness is one. So let me just quickly touch upon these 5. Awareness is one of them, which means that everyone is aware and marginally using it, right? For personal purposes. Adds productivity, sure, I'm sure. Then you're looking at experimentation, and experimentation could be some process-based improvements. So you could look at certain tools that are AI backed, which help you in specific outcomes related to certain functions, legal functions, knowledge base, or making your notes, etc. Blah blah blah. So those two, I think there's no enterprise in the world that is not trying, right? They're doing it. But their issue is, how do we transform? Do I just raise my building and think of classrooms again? And that's not possible. So for the bigger enterprises, there is a roadmap. There is a roadmap that they can all leverage. And today, you will not believe, right? Despite 95% efficiency gains for simple tasks, right? Which is like proven. The only value that enterprises get is 12%. Actual value seen for using LLMs is 12%. And the reason for that is that it just gets dissipated. The AI is very good. Where does it get stuck? It gets stuck in the humans, the processes, and the structure, infrastructure. 3 things: the infrastructure, processes, and humans. All of them need a change. Easiest way, raise it off, come at it again, not doable. So what is doable? And when I said the last points there, profitably doable, is that by simple training, beginning at phase 1, is that if you just tell the people to start training your agents, right? Create an agent, for example, first, understand what an agent is, and then develop the mindset of getting your work done via the agent only. Don't give it 1 prompt, give it 3. Not 1-shot prompting, just do 3-shot prompting. And there's evidence to show that would take the productivity gains from 12% to 39%. So that incremental productivity that you're getting is what you take and invest in the infrastructure that is required. When I say infrastructure, I mean to upgrade the infrastructure, upgrade the processes, and upgrade the people. And this repetitive exercise for enterprises has to keep going for as long as it takes. If it takes a decade, it takes a decade. And you keep moving up. You integrate, then you optimize, and then you transform. But with that, an enterprise can become has a roadmap, a straight up roadmap of embracing agentic AI. And that is something that, that's the trust that currently the AI world, or the AI lobby, I call it, right? Everyone who's invested, who believes in it. Okay, let's go on the moral side first. Who completely believes that AI is a good thing. It's here. It can make a difference and make a good difference. As well as those people who have invested heavily into the infrastructure, into it, and are now materially invested in it, are trying to make all the enterprises in the world believe. And they're all sitting on the fence. Some of them have taken it full throttle. They are very few. Most of them are in phase 1, 2, right? And that is the reason why those profits are not coming. So yeah, trust is something that we need to talk about. And let's take that trust question to the B2C, right? And in B2C, it's pretty good, right? I think it's more intuitive. I certainly feel that it's a more intuitive topic on the B2C side. Purely because I think we are all, well, I would just say that we are all kind of averse to AI. We don't like AI that much. We'd have it as someone who helps us do tasks, but we don't want to chat with AI. Like, we don't want to engage at an emotional level with AI wherever experiences are coming through. And I don't know if that will change. I mean, there are movies now where people are seen interacting with AI, people talking very emotional things, and I don't know if that's the future. But for now, whoever we talk to as end consumers, they want the human touch, and they like it. And it is our, we believe that as we move forward, it's going to be at a premium. So actually, people are going to go to a restaurant to get bad service from humans and pay more, versus going to a restaurant and get good service from robots. And that day is not far away. People are going to pay very premium money just to be able to have a real person come up, chit chat, serve you, to be able to see them in flesh and blood. And we are seeing this across. We are seeing that that being valued more and more for now. Again, consumer behavior is a decadal question. Where it will be in a decade, I don't know. Off topic, I'm like my 9-year-old. Does he value relationships in the same way that I value them? Is he okay in having a virtual universe and talking to them and being very happy with his circle? And is that entire generation very happy doing that? I don't know. I find it odd. Maybe they don't. And we would only know. Time would tell. If they don't, then maybe I am wrong. Maybe people will be okay, and all of us would be walking around with some AI bots and sharing our emotions with them. But for now, what we are seeing is that people like talking to people, and the way they are actually distinguishing that is by spotting errors. So in that way, I believe AI has actually done good for us, right? You don't have to be prim anymore. You don't have to craft the best email. An error is a good thing. It just shows that maybe you did it yourself. Maybe AI will become knowledgeable and start putting in those errors too. We don't know. It learns fast. But yeah. So on the human, on this side, it is it's very different from the B2B side, right? And expectedly so. B2C industries are very emotional in nature, whereas B2B industries are very process driven in nature. Uh, most most decisions are taken emotionally um, at the B2C level, whereas in B2B most decisions are taken statistically. So I mean that difference is evident. So here's some few others. I talked about the restaurant and I talk about the B2B example. So this is again currently in the industry what is happening. One of those so tech recruitment, right? Like a lot of people want to get in tech, I'm sure. So these days, genuine tech people are having a hard time clearing an interview. And I've met these guys, really nice guys, right? Good. I mean, they're pretty good at their work. Genuine people, they go give an interview and they're rejected. And the reason that we are told, oh, they had help. They were coming up with responses that the AI told them. Do you have evidence? No, we don't. It was their eyes were here or there, and they were speaking in a way that sounded like AI. Their answers were very programmatic, and that's a serious problem, right? Because genuine people now are being, and I'm seeing it every day. What's the solution? The solution is that you come in person. That's it, right? Now that again changes the paradigm of that tech industry itself, which taught us, virtual virtual working. So it's a huge paradox, but I'm seeing it every day. It happens, and I think US is taking the leap with this. I guess some places they've asked specifically engineering talent to come 5 days a week, which is again all thanks to this AI. So, I mean, just bringing out a trend that is happening right now, and I think as we move forward, right, I think it is important for us to understand that the human agent interplay is very important. So when you are trying to build that trust, whether it is at the B2B side or it is at the B2C side, we have to intuitively understand or come to an understanding of what that good mix is. If you go purely as a human, you won't stand a chance to compete. A lot of the things, for example, turnaround times now for coming up with research, collaterals, lots of things like that. It's common that you've got to do that in half or even third the time now that you were doing earlier. And because the demands are like that, the industry has, they understand that everyone's using AI. So you've got to know how to use AI to use it right. Yet, if you're only producing what the AI helps you produce, then you're not differentiated enough. So that human element, and that's a very interesting piece as well. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about this. I think this is a customer value, and we briefly touched about this earlier. So, getting our thoughts to the customer value piece on how do we think of customer value in the agentic AI? So I want to take you all back to what was happening earlier versus what is happening now. So earlier we were taking in a piece of feedback, then taking a decision on whether or not to act on this feedback. If yes, you are investing some money on it, and then we are seeing the ROI. That was the chain earlier, right? So there's a cost versus customer experience or better customer experience debate. Think of it as a project, right? I mean, estimate that within the boardroom you'll have to make. Is this investment worth it or not? Now it's real time. So the agent is able to, it just kind of sits in between. It's a dynamic thing. And it's looking at the feedback which is coming in. It is trying to solve that problem real time. Because of which you are, say, let's assume we were tackling the problem of churn. It is able to stop that churn, which means you earned, say, X dollars extra. And that value then can be put into the product itself, which in this case, let's take the TELUS case of the billing, to improve the billing service itself. And that's why it's a feed now. It's an iterative loop wherein the agentic AI is suppose, I mean, I talked about those 12 and 39% of the profits, earlier, and most enterprises are looking at it like that. It's an investment that should pay in itself, and that is a game changer. You do not have to think about whether or not you have to do something. You have to implement phase 1 and 2, get the incremental value that is on the table, and then use that value to then put into the product to increase the shareholder value. So now the value is coming from two aspects. One is users. End users are happy, etc. They're giving you higher customer satisfaction, experience, etc. And the shareholder value is increasing. Earlier, it was about keeping them separate. Now it kind of feeds into each other. And that's the paradigm shift again that is coming in the customer values piece itself. Chicken and egg, but now happening mostly, at least envisaged, as something that should fuel itself. We are routinely going to major customers, giving them proposals wherein their initial costs are very low to minimal. Case in point, and I can talk through this, and it's one of the most solved cases as well, is a customer experience center, right? So you have 100,000 agents, or so let's take a case of 1,000 agents. You have 1,000 agents, their average call lasts 9 minutes, their average salary is, say, $50,000-$60,000. And your agent, first call resolution. It finishes that call, it takes the call 20% of the times, an agent does not need to talk. Another 30% of the times, the call time, the problem resolution time has gone down to 5 minutes. So 4 minutes of those agents is saved, 20% is entirely saved. And all of this is then used to upskill those agents to either cross-sell, upsell, make human connection, or get into some other aspect of, or increase, fund the growth of the company. So that part is happening across various agentic AI use cases. Where that value is more visible and tangible is where we are seeing the most traction right now. So the use case that I told you, agentic, customer experience is a very solid use case. Everyone's kind of seen it, done it. The more typical ones are drugs, right? So drug research. Now, drug research, and I'd like to touch upon that one, right? So typically a drug to market, from the time the research starts to it actually getting to the hands of end consumers, could be even a 10-year process. Right? Pharma companies are spending billions at times. I mean, it's good investment. They make their money. But if you think of it as a process, it starts with research, moves on to, let's say, trials. From trials, then it goes on to filings, etc., and then go to market. So if we take those 4 parts, the research it used to take 2 to 3 years is down to 2 months. The trials, depending on how fast the government can respond, would also see time decreasing. The filings, the legal pieces, 1/10 of the time. So essentially, a drug which used to take 10 years to market will now take 5. $2 billion that was spent would become 1, maybe less. More lives would be saved, etc. That's a transformational, use case for agentic AI. And that industry is also taking in. Now, I want all of you to think, I just gave you one use case on the medicine side. But just the way that industry would change, and that would mean what? That would mean a lot less researchers. So, we are also talking about, now you don't need 10 researchers on something. You might need 1 researcher and 3 assistants, etc. Right? So that will change on what is happening. But more people will start thinking and using these tools for other efficiencies. Another case in point for that is the nature of smaller implementation partners. So these days, if you look at Klarna, let me take the case of Klarna, right? So Klarna was able to handle almost 70% of its queries using agentic AI. Its revenue per employee is north of $1 million. It's grown. It's a hyperscaler grown with 50 employees. It's a digital native. It's a very new company, as all of you might know. But I'm sure all of you know Klarna, right? And Klarna is not alone. I mean, you would find 100, at least 100. Easily, you'll find 100 startups today with people who are less than 15, less than 25, right? And who are doing business that was earlier possible only for 100, 150, 200 people firms. That is another piece that we are seeing right now. You do not need. So my final thought on this, well suited for this particular slide as we look at global AI adoption on the trends piece, is about what is happening. How do you ensure that you leverage this agentic AI in the best possible manner for your enterprise? If you look at these, what we have here, and I know the slide has just taken my attention here because I find this very interesting as well. If you look at the final one, the phase slide, and I was referring to it earlier, and we talked about 5 phases. If you'll see, all of them are build, scale, pivot. So most of them are build, pilot, scale. And this is all enterprise. These are all big, right? So if you see, Klarna is at scale. AT&T is at scale. And what has AT&T scaled? AT&T has scaled its customer experience. So the telco industry as such has been able to scale its customer experience wing. The US major players have been able to do it before the Canadians. The Canadians have caught on. But that segment has actually scaled and is seeing tremendous value, right? Everyone else that you see here is in the build phase or a pilot phase. And that's the agentic AI. That's the real word to current practical standing of agentic AI. If I had to summarize for all startups, anyone trying to do anything new, agentic AI is the way to go. It's not, the new organization will not have departments. It'll stop having departments. There will only be agents. So you will have a marketing agent, you will have a finance agent, you'll have an HR agent, etc. Humans will sit on top of them. Their job is going to be to tune, optimize, etc., and sit on top to see what is happening across those agents. They will discuss, and these agents are capable of talking to each other, get intelligence, but they're focused on their department. The way today we have silos. So as organizations are evolving, they are letting go of those silos by actually planting agents as departments. The humans are sitting on top because they have the necessary intelligence to be able to see what this agent has brought and then discuss in a room or take care of 2 or 3 agents and then accordingly tweak each of them so that they give better outputs. That is the new age enterprise that we are seeing. Any enterprise that's coming up today is coming up in that fashion, is thinking in that fashion. That is the AI first enterprise, which is where all these want to be in 5 to 10 years time, and all of them are well and truly on that path as well. Okay, so just some few takeaways. As I said, right, ownership, we talked about it. B2B, just all of you take away your concerns. It's always your data is safe as it was earlier. That's all I like saying. Like everything, it's basically, I like giving the aeroplane analogy, right? It's so safe, like it is safest. Yet you might feel more comfortable in a self-driven car, right? But the data proves otherwise. So now, so is AI. It's as safe as the aeroplanes, right? That's it. Aircrafts, they're as safe as the AI. It's us, and that's okay. Consumer behavior takes time, right? It always does. So, but we will eventually get there. The reason for that, as I said, is business sense. Ethics. I don't trust humans with too much. It's good to have ethics, but before ethics, it's good business to have good ethics, and that would be proven. Anyone who would not do that would eventually immediately lose. And for that, because all of us are human, we just immediately shun that company, and everyone knows that. Governance is not, right? So governance, I'm sure all of you know that governance is lagging behind. It always lags behind tech. Second point is the value engine. I think we talked about it in very detail. The last one about the human frontier was AI would, as we see it further, right? Just a crystal gaze. AI will handle the utility aspect of it, right? We have to ensure that the data, right, that the AI is leveraging, that and our experience / intervention. So when I say experiences on the B2C side, interventionist side is that guy who's looking at the different agents, right? So whichever side you are on the B2B or B2C, you choose. Those are going to be the differentiators. Those are going to be the competitive moats as you move forward.